The pregnancy announcement should have been the happiest moment of my life. Instead, it became the thread that unraveled everything. "We're having a baby." Sarah's voice had trembled with excitement that Tuesday evening, her hands shaking as she held up the positive test. I'd frozen mid-step in our kitchen, coffee mug suspended in air. We'd been trying for 18 months. 18 months of disappointment, tears, and mounting tension. And now, suddenly success. But something felt wrong. I'm not proud of what I did next, but instinct overrode reason. That night, while Sarah slept, I checked her period tracking app. She'd always been meticulous about it, logging every cycle religiously. The numbers swam before my eyes in the dim phone light. According to her records, conception would have happened during my engineering conference in Seattle, 3 days when I'd been 2,000 miles away, presenting at tech seminars and sleeping in a sterile hotel room. I told myself I was being paranoid. Apps could be wrong. Ovulation could vary. Medical miracles happened, but the seed of doubt had planted itself deep, and it grew like poison ivy in my chest. The next weeks were torture. I played the excited husband while my mind cataloged every inconsistency. The way Sarah's eyes wouldn't quite meet mine when we discussed baby names. How she'd suddenly become protective of her phone, angling it away when texts came through. The hushed conversations that ended abruptly when I entered rooms. Then there was Marcus. My best friend since college, the guy who'd been best man at our wedding, who came over every Friday for poker night. Marcus, who'd been oddly absent since the pregnancy announcement. When he finally showed up 3 weeks later, his hug felt stiff, performative. His congratulations rang hollow. "You good, man?" I'd asked him, searching his face. "Just work stress," he'd replied, but his eyes told a different story. They told the story of a man carrying the weight of a secret too heavy to bear. I started piecing things together with the methodical precision of an engineer solving a problem. Sarah's girls' nights that increased in frequency last fall, the same period Marcus claimed to be working late on a project. The weekend I'd gone to visit my dying uncle in Ohio, when both of them had been uncharacteristically hard to reach. The new lingerie I'd found in her drawer that she'd never worn for me. The evidence mounted like layers of sediment, each piece small enough to dismiss individually, but collectively forming an undeniable pattern. I made an appointment with Dr. Rachel Chen, Sarah's OB-GYN, under the pretense of being a concerned husband, wanting to understand the pregnancy timeline. She was kind, patient, explaining conception windows and fetal development with medical precision. When she showed me the ultrasound measurements and estimated conception date, my heart stopped. Based on the fetal measurements, I'd estimate conception occurred around October 18th. "Give or take 3 days, Dr. Chen had said warmly. "Does that align with your expectations?" October 18th. The exact middle of my Seattle trip. I drove home in a daze, hands gripping the steering wheel so tight my knuckles went white. Part of me wanted to storm into the house and demand the truth. But another part, the part that had learned strategy through years of problem solving, knew I needed proof. Real, incontrovertible proof. That night I lay next to Sarah, listening to her peaceful breathing, and felt like a stranger in my own bed. The woman I'd loved for 6 years, the woman I'd planned my entire future with, was carrying another man's child. And if my suspicions were correct, that man was someone I'd trusted like a brother. But I couldn't confront them yet. Not without certainty. Accusations without proof would be met with denials, gaslighting, and turntables. I'd seen it happen to other men, destroyed by their own doubt, made to look like the villain for even questioning. So I waited. I played the doting husband-to-be. I smiled at baby shower planning and nodded at nursery color schemes. And I quietly researched DNA testing options, planning for the moment when my world would either be restored or completely shattered. I had no idea how much worse it was about to get. My home office became my sanctuary and my prison. Every evening I'd claim I needed to catch up on work, closing the door while Sarah watched reality TV in the living room. But I wasn't working. I was building a case file like a detective obsessed with cracking an unsolvable murder. The prenatal paternity test was surprisingly easy to arrange. All it required was a blood draw from Sarah, which happened routinely at her appointments, and a DNA sample from me. But I needed Marcus's DNA too, and that required creativity. Friday night poker provided the opportunity. I'd invited the usual crew, Marcus, Jake, and Dennis. Everything seemed normal on the surface. Beer, chips, trash talk about bad hands. But I was hyper-aware of every move Marcus made. When he sipped his beer, I noted which bottle. When we ordered pizza, I watched which slices he touched. After everyone left, I carefully bagged his beer bottle and a napkin he'd used, sealing them in gallon-sized bags with the dedication of a crime scene investigator. I felt ridiculous, paranoid, like I was starring in my own psychological thriller, but I couldn't stop. The private lab I found didn't ask questions. They just required samples and payment, $500 for expedited results. I sent Marcus's DNA with a story about paternity confirmation before signing birth certificates. The technician on the phone had been matter-of-fact, probably having heard stranger stories. Results in 7 business days, she'd said. We'll call an email. Those 7 days felt like 7 years. I threw myself into normalcy, attending Sarah's doctor appointments, assembling the crib we'd ordered, even hosting her parents for dinner. Her mother gushed about becoming a grandmother. Her father shook my hand with pride, calling me son with genuine affection. The guilt on Sarah's face was almost imperceptible, just a flicker around her eyes, but I caught it. What I didn't catch was the deeper conspiracy brewing in my own family. The call came on a Wednesday afternoon. I was in a meeting when my phone buzzed with a number I'd been simultaneously dreading and anticipating. I excused myself, walking quickly to the parking lot, my heart hammering so hard I could hear it in my ears. Mr. Peterson, this is Jennifer from Paternity Lab Solutions. Yes. My voice came out strangled. Your results are ready. I'm required to ask if you're in a private location where you can discuss sensitive information. I sat in my car, hands shaking. Yes, go ahead. Based on the samples provided, the alleged father shares 0% genetic markers with the fetus. However, the secondary sample, labeled Sample B, shows a 99.97% probability of paternity. The world tilted sideways. Even though I'd suspected, even though I'd prepared myself, hearing the confirmation felt like being hit by a truck. Are you certain? I whispered, yes, sir. There's no doubt. Sample B is the biological father, Marcus. My best friend Marcus had gotten my wife pregnant. I don't remember driving home. One moment I was in the parking lot. The next I was sitting in my driveway staring at my house. The house I'd bought with Sarah. The house where we'd planned to raise children, grow old, build a life. All of it was a lie. I didn't go inside. Instead, I called the one person I thought I could trust, my mother. Mom, I need to talk to you. Can you meet me somewhere? Honey, what's wrong? You sound terrible. Please. The coffee shop on Maple. 30 minutes. She arrived before me, worry etched across her face. I sat down heavily, the lab report burning in my jacket pocket like radioactive material. Sarah's baby isn't mine, I said without preamble. It's Marcus's. I expected shock, horror, motherly outrage on my behalf. What I got instead was something far worse, a flicker of recognition. Her eyes widened, but not with surprise, with the realization that a secret had just been exposed. You knew. The words came out flat, emotionless. How long have you known? Sweetheart, listen. How long, Mom? She closed her eyes. 6 weeks. Your father and we found out 6 weeks ago. The betrayal hit me in waves. How? Marcus came to us. He was drowning in guilt, didn't know what to do. He told us everything, the affair, the pregnancy, his certainty that he was the father. He begged us for advice. And you advised him to keep lying to me? My voice rose, drawing stares from other patrons. I didn't care. We advised everyone to think carefully before destroying a family, she said firmly. You and Sarah have built a good life. Marcus made a terrible mistake, but mistakes can be forgiven. Your father and I thought that maybe it was better to let you raise the child as your own. You'd never have to know. Better for who? Certainly not for me. For everyone. For you, for your marriage, for the baby who deserves a stable home. Do you have any idea what kind of chaos the truth would cause? I stared at the woman who'd raised me, who'd taught me about honesty and integrity, who'd punished me as a child for even small lies. You were going to let me raise another man's child. You were going to watch me celebrate, pick names, change diapers, pay for everything, all while knowing the truth. We were trying to protect you from pain. You were protecting yourselves from discomfort. I stood abruptly, chair scraping loud against tile. You chose peace over truth. You chose Sarah and Marcus over your own son. That's not fair. Fair? You want to talk about fair? I pulled out the lab report, slapping it on the table. What's fair is that I get to decide my own life based on truth, not on lies everyone around me agreed to maintain. What's fair is that I get to choose whether to forgive betrayal, not have that choice stolen from me. Your father feels the same way I do, she said quietly. We talked about it extensively. This was the right call, that's when I knew. My parents, both of them, had actively conspired to keep me in the dark. They'd looked me in the eye at family dinners, accepted my excited updates about the pregnancy, and said nothing. They'd planned to watch me live a lie forever. I walked out of that coffee shop and drove straight to a locksmith. If everyone in my life could rewrite reality to suit themselves, then I could rewrite the terms of my existence. I was done being a supporting character in other people's stories. It was time to write my own ending. The locksmith arrived at 7 a.m. on Saturday. Sarah had left early for a prenatal yoga class, probably another lie in an avalanche of lies. I'd stopped believing anything she said the moment Jennifer from the lab confirmed my worst fears. You want all the locks changed? The locksmith, a weathered man named Tom, surveyed the front door, garage, and back patio entrance. Every single one, and I need it done in the next 2 hours. He raised an eyebrow but didn't ask questions. That's the thing about service professionals. They've seen enough drama to know when not to pry. I can do that. It'll cost extra for the rush. Money's not an issue. While Tom worked, I worked. I'd spent the previous night preparing, running on fury and black coffee, barely sleeping. My plan was methodical, decisive, final. No room for second-guessing or emotional compromise. First, I changed all our shared passwords, bank accounts, streaming services, utilities, credit cards. Everything we'd built together, I locked her out of. Our joint checking account? I withdrew my half down to the penny and opened a new account at a different bank. The savings we'd accumulated for a down payment on a bigger house split exactly according to what we'd each contributed, which I'd meticulously documented years ago because I was that kind of person. Funny how being organized during good times pays off during catastrophes. I contacted a divorce attorney I'd researched, Catherine Morrison, known for representing husbands in infidelity cases. Her fees were astronomical, but her reputation was ironclad. I'd already sent her the lab results, a timeline of Sarah's lies and documentation of my parents' conspiracy. She'd called me at midnight. This is one of the clearest cases I've seen, she'd said. With proof of infidelity and paternity fraud, you'll walk away clean. She won't get a dime of alimony, and you're not responsible for child support for a child that isn't biologically yours. How fast can we move? I can file Monday morning. With your evidence, this won't be contested long. Second, I boxed up everything that mattered to me. Photos from my childhood, my engineering textbooks, my grandfather's watch, my gaming PC. Anything with sentimental value that couldn't be replaced. I loaded it all into a storage unit I'd rented across town. The lease on our house was in both our names, but I didn't care about the house anymore. She could have it. I just wanted out. Third, I documented everything. Screenshots of her period tracker showing the impossible conception window, text messages where she'd been evasive about her whereabouts, the ultrasound with Dr. Chen's estimated conception date circled in red, Marcus's guilty text from last month, "We need to talk, but not over phone," which suddenly made perfect sense. I created a digital folder titled Evidence and backed it up 3 different ways. By the time Sarah came home at 10 a.m., glowing with yoga endorphins and fake serenity, her key no longer worked. I watched from the window as she tried it once, twice, 3 times, confusion morphing into concern. She pulled out her phone, probably to call me. I'd already blocked her number. Then she started knocking. Daniel? Daniel, what's going on? The lock isn't working. I opened the door but stood in the frame, blocking entry. She looked beautiful in her yoga pants and loose shirt, carefully chosen to accommodate her growing belly. Marcus's baby growing inside her.
The sight made my stomach turn. Sarah, we need to talk. Can I come in first?
Why doesn't my key work? Because you don't live here anymore. Her face went pale. What are you talking about? I pulled out the lab report, unfolding it slowly like a prosecutor revealing Exhibit A. I know about Marcus. I know the baby isn't mine. I know everything. The color drained from her face completely. Her mouth opened and closed like a fish drowning in air. Daniel, I can explain. Explain what? How you've been sleeping with my best friend. How you got pregnant with his child. Or maybe you want to explain how you were planning to pass it off as mine for the next 18 years. Tears started streaming down her face, but they looked performative, calculated. It was a mistake. One terrible mistake that got out of hand. I love you, Daniel. I've always loved you. When? When exactly was this one mistake? Because according to phone records I subpoenaed through my attorney, I hadn't actually subpoenaed anything yet. But her face confirmed my bluff. You and Marcus have been in contact almost daily for 8 months. She stumbled backward, hand on her stomach. You hired an attorney? I filed for divorce yesterday. You'll be served papers Monday morning. The house is in both our names, so we'll settle that in court. But everything inside that belongs to me is already gone. Your clothes, your things, they're all still here. I only took what's mine. You can't just throw me out. I'm pregnant. With another man's child. My voice finally broke, rage and pain spilling through the cracks in my composure. You stood in this house, our house, and told me we were having a baby. You let me believe I was going to be a father. You let me start planning a nursery, picking out names, reading parenting books. And all of it was a lie. We can work through this. No, we can't. There's no we anymore. There's you and your choices, and there's me moving on. She grabbed the doorframe. Please, Daniel. Don't do this. Think about the baby. I am thinking about the baby. That child deserves to know who its real father is. That child deserves to grow up without living in the middle of a lie. And that child deserves better than parents who would perpetuate a fraud. What about Marcus? Have you talked to him? Marcus is next. But first I wanted you to understand something, Sarah. You didn't just betray our marriage. You tried to steal my entire future. You were going to let me bond with a child, love a child, sacrifice for a child, all while knowing I'd been betrayed. That's not just infidelity. That's sociopathic. Her tears came harder now, probably real this time. I'm so sorry. I never meant for any of this. You meant all of it. Every lie, every deflection, every moment you let me believe in a fantasy. You made conscious choices over and over to deceive me. And when you got caught, you only cried because your plan failed, not because you feel genuine remorse. I pulled out a folder from inside the door, her copy of the divorce papers, the lab results, and a printout of her new rights as a tenant. Catherine had insisted on this to cover myself legally. You have 30 days to make other arrangements. This house will be sold and assets split. My attorney will contact yours. Don't try to reach me directly. All communication goes through lawyers now. Your parents know, she said suddenly, desperately. They've known for weeks. They said they'd help us work through this, that they'd support keeping the family together. I know they knew. I had coffee with my mother yesterday. She told me everything. How Marcus came to them, how they all decided it was better to lie to me for my own good. How they were all planning to let me live in ignorance. Sarah's eyes widened. You're cutting them off too? I'm cutting off everyone who chose deception over truth. That includes my parents. That includes Marcus. That includes you. I'm starting over, Sarah, completely over. And none of you get to be part of my new life. I handed her the folder and started to close the door. Daniel, wait. Please. Where will I go? That's not my problem anymore. Figure it out. Maybe Marcus will take you in since he's the father. Maybe my parents will help since they were so invested in your lie. But I'm done carrying burdens that aren't mine. This is cruel. No, I interrupted. Cruel is what you did to me. This is justice. This is consequences. This is me finally respecting myself enough to walk away. I closed the door and locked it, with the new lock, the one she had no key for. I could hear her sobbing on the other side, but I felt nothing. The part of me that would have comforted her, that would have rushed to fix her pain, had died when I read that lab report. My phone started ringing. Blocked numbers I knew were her trying from different phones. Then came the text from mutual friends. What's going on? Sarah says you locked her out? Dude, she's pregnant. This is harsh. I sent one group message. Sarah had an affair with Marcus. The baby is his, not mine. I have DNA proof. I'm filing for divorce. Anyone who wants to question my decisions or guilt me into staying can exit my life too. I'm not interested in being anyone's doormat. The responses ranged from shock to support to angry accusations that I was lying. I blocked the accusers without a second thought. My circle was shrinking rapidly, but I'd rather be alone with truth than surrounded by people who'd rather maintain comfortable lies. Next stop, Marcus. Marcus lived in a downtown loft that had always made me slightly jealous. exposed brick, floor-to-ceiling windows, the kind of bachelor pad that screamed success. I'd helped him move in 3 years ago, carrying boxes up narrow stairs, joking about his terrible taste in furniture. That memory felt like it belonged to a different person in a different lifetime. I didn't call ahead. I wanted to see his face when confronted with the truth he'd been hiding. The doorman, Marcus's building actually had a doorman, gave me a curious look but let me up. I'd been here enough times to be recognized. I wondered if this would be the last time I knocked hard. Once, twice, 3 times. Coming. Marcus's voice called out, irritated. When he opened the door, his expression cycled through confusion, recognition, and finally fear in about 2 seconds. He knew. He knew that I knew. Daniel. I didn't let him finish. My fist connected with his jaw before conscious thought caught up with action. He stumbled backward, crashing into his expensive console table, hand flying to his face. What the hell? That's for my wife. This is for the friendship. I pulled out a printed copy of the paternity test and threw it at him. It fluttered to the ground like a death certificate. You got Sarah pregnant. Marcus stayed down, blood trickling from his lip, eyes wide. Let me explain. You have 60 seconds before I leave forever. Make them count. He pulled himself up slowly, breathing hard. It started last summer. We were both drunk after Jake's wedding. Sarah was upset because you'd been working so much, barely paying attention to her. I was going through that bad breakup with Emma. We were both vulnerable and stupid, and I don't care about your justifications. When did you know about the baby? She told me the same day she told you. She swore it might be yours, that the timing could work out. We both hoped. You hoped to pass your bastard off as mine and never tell me? The words came out cold, factual. Emotional detachment was setting in, which felt like a mercy. We panicked. Daniel, you have to understand. We never meant for any of this to happen. It was supposed to be one mistake, one night we'd pretend never happened. When she got pregnant, we didn't know what to do. So you did nothing. You let me celebrate. You shook my hand and congratulated me. You came over for poker nights and looked me in the eye while carrying this secret. I stepped closer. And then, and this is my favorite part, you went to my parents for advice instead of being a man and telling me the truth. His face crumpled. I was trying to find the right way. There is no right way to say I betrayed you, you just say it. But you're a coward, Marcus. You've always been a coward. I just never saw it before because I confused your charm for character. Are you going to hit me again? No. Violence doesn't fix anything, and you're not worth a police record. I just needed you to know that I know and that you're dead to me. You don't get to apologize your way out of this. You don't get redemption or forgiveness or a chance to make things right. You get nothing. We were brothers, he said quietly, and actual tears started forming in his eyes. 15 years of friendship. You killed that friendship the moment you slept with my wife. No, actually, you killed it every day afterward when you stayed silent. Every text, every hangout, every time you pretended to care about my life while hiding what you'd done. That's 15 years of friendship murdered slowly, deliberately. I turned to leave, but he grabbed my arm. Daniel, please, I'll do anything. I'll disappear. I'll support the child financially without claiming paternity. I yanked my arm free. You'll do what's legally required when the court establishes paternity. You'll pay child support. You'll be in that kid's life if Sarah wants you to be. And you'll live with the knowledge that you destroyed lives because you couldn't keep your dick in your pants. What about Sarah? Where is she going to go? Again, not my problem. She's your problem now. You wanted her badly enough to risk everything? Congratulations, you won. Now deal with the consequences. I walked out of his loft and his life. My knuckles throbbed from punching him, but the pain felt good. Honest, physical, real. Unlike everything else in my life lately, pain didn't lie. My phone was exploding. Text from my father. Your mother told me what happened. We need to talk. Voicemails from Sarah's parents going from concerned to angry. Messages from mutual friends asking for my side of the story. And a long email from my mother titled, Please read this, your father and I love you. I deleted everything without reading or listening. They'd all had chances to be honest, to stand with me, to do the right thing. They'd all chosen comfort over integrity. But there was one message I did read, from my younger sister, Emily. She was in graduate school across the country studying marine biology, blissfully uninvolved in the family drama until now. Mom called me crying. She says you're cutting them off over a disagreement about how to handle Sarah's situation. She's not giving me details. but I know Mom's version of events is usually missing crucial information. What actually happened? Are you okay? I called her. She answered on the first ring. Daniel, what's going on? I told her everything. The timeline that didn't work. The paternity test. Marcus's confession to our parents. Their decision to help everyone maintain the lie. My decision to walk away from all of it. Emily was quiet for a long moment. They knew for 6 weeks and said nothing. They were going to say nothing forever. I don't even have words. That's a fundamental betrayal. Thank you. My voice cracked. Thank you for saying that. Everyone else is acting like I'm the villain for not wanting to play happy family with my wife's baby and my cheating ex-best friend. You're not the villain. You're the only person in this mess acting with integrity. She paused. I'm coming home next weekend. Not to their house, to wherever you are. You shouldn't be alone right now. Emily, you don't have to. I want to. You're my brother, and unlike Mom and Dad, I actually value honesty and loyalty. After I hung up, I sat in my car outside Marcus's building and let myself feel it all. The rage, the grief, the profound loneliness of discovering that almost everyone you trusted had failed you simultaneously. I cried for the first time since this nightmare began. Big, ugly, gasping sobs that left me exhausted. But underneath the pain, something else was growing. Something that felt like liberation. For years, I'd been a supporting character in other people's stories. The reliable husband, the loyal friend, the dutiful son. I'd twisted myself into shapes that made others comfortable, sacrificing my own needs and boundaries to maintain peace. That version of me was gone. And maybe that was okay. My phone buzzed again. Catherine, my attorney. Daniel, I heard from Sarah's lawyer. She wants to negotiate a settlement. She's claiming emotional distress and asking for a larger share of assets as compensation. I laughed. A harsh, bitter sound. She wants me to pay her for cheating on me? That's essentially what she's asking for, yes. Obviously, we're going to fight this. But I wanted you to know she's not going quietly. I expected that. Sarah spent our entire relationship manipulating situations to her advantage. Why would she stop now? How do you want to proceed? Scorched earth. I want every piece of evidence presented in court. I want everyone to know exactly what she did. No quiet settlement that lets her play victim. She made this mess publicly. She can suffer the consequences publicly. That's going to be expensive and emotionally draining. I don't care. Some things matter more than money or comfort. Truth is one of them. After the call ended, I drove to the storage unit where I'd packed my life. In the dim fluorescent lighting, surrounded by boxes of memories, I made a decision. I pulled out my laptop and started writing. If I was going to start over, I needed to process what happened. I needed to document this nightmare not just for me, but for anyone else who'd been betrayed and gaslit and told to keep the peace at the expense of their own dignity. The working title, How I Lost Everyone and Found Myself. It wasn't poetry. It wasn't even particularly original, but it was true. And truth, I was learning, was the only foundation worth building a life on. 3 months later, I sat in a coffee shop in Portland, Oregon, 800 miles from the life I'd left behind, putting finishing touches on what had become a viral blog series. The Betrayal Chronicles had started as personal catharsis and morphed into something bigger. Thousands of people had reached out, sharing their own stories of infidelity, family betrayal, and the courage it took to walk away. The divorce had been finalized last week. Sarah got the house. I didn't want it anyway, and I walked away with my retirement accounts, my car, and my dignity. Marcus was now publicly established as the father and would be paying child support. Sarah's reputation in our social circle had imploded. Mutual friends had split into camps, but the ones worth keeping had stayed in contact with me. My parents had tried reaching out dozens of times. Long emails alternating between apologies and justifications. My father showed up at my old workplace before learning I'd quit and moved across the country. My mother sent a letter claiming she was just trying to protect me from pain, apparently unaware that lying to someone for their own good is still lying. I'd responded to none of it. Emily had become my only family contact, visiting once and maintaining regular video calls. She'd sided with me completely, even confronting our parents about their role in the cover-up. They'd tried to defend themselves, but Emily, bless her, had simply said, You betrayed your son to avoid discomfort. That's not love. That's cowardice. The blog had caught the attention of a literary agent. She'd called last week with an offer to help me expand the posts into a book, a memoir about betrayal, recovery, and the radical act of choosing yourself. The proposed title, Changing the Locks, a guide to walking away when everyone wants you to stay. It's a powerful narrative, she'd said during our call. You're articulating something a lot of people feel but can't express, the exhaustion of being everyone's emotional support while nobody supports you. The courage it takes to be the bad guy who chooses honesty over harmony. I'd signed with her yesterday. My life now looked nothing like my life 3 months ago. I'd taken a job with a tech startup in Portland, a lateral move that paid slightly less but offered remote work flexibility. I'd rented a small apartment in a walkable neighborhood, furnished it minimally, just the essentials. No clutter, no history, just space to breathe and rebuild. I'd started therapy with Dr. Patricia Wong, a specialist in trauma and betrayal. She'd helped me understand that what I'd experienced wasn't just infidelity, it was a systematic breach of trust by everyone in my inner circle simultaneously. That kind of wholesale betrayal rewires your ability to trust, she'd explained in our first session. Your wife, your best friend, your parents, these were supposed to be your safe people. When they all fail you at once, it creates a kind of existential vertigo. You question reality itself, she was right. For weeks after leaving, I'd struggled with paranoia, analyzing every interaction for hidden meanings, convinced everyone was lying about something. But slowly, with her help, I was learning to distinguish between reasonable caution and trauma-driven hypervigilance. I'd also joined a men's support group for divorce and betrayal, 8 guys who met every Tuesday evening in a community center basement. At first, I'd felt ridiculous, like I was in a bad movie cliché, but listening to other men's stories had been unexpectedly healing. James, whose wife had emptied their bank accounts and disappeared with their kids for 6 months. Robert, whose brother had been sleeping with his wife for 3 years. Michael, whose entire family had known about his wife's affair with the neighbor and said nothing because it wasn't their place to interfere. We were a broken brotherhood, but we were honest about being broken. And that honesty created trust. How do you let go of the anger? Robert had asked during last week's session. How do you stop waking up at 3 a.m. furious about everything they took from you? I'd thought carefully before answering. You don't let go of the anger. You let it move through you. You acknowledge it, validate it, and then you redirect it into building something better. My anger became my blog. My blog became my book deal. My book deal became my new purpose. The anger didn't disappear, it transformed into fuel. Today, sitting in my Portland coffee shop, watching rain streak down windows, I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Peace. Not the fake peace my parents had been trying to preserve through lies. Real peace that comes from alignment between your values and your actions. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number, but one I recognized from the area code. Home. Daniel, this is Dad. I know you've been ignoring us and I respect that you need space. But your mother's health has taken a turn. Her doctor found some concerning results from her last checkup. She wants to see you. Please, son, whatever has happened between us, she's still your mother. She loves you. I stared at the message for a long time. This was the classic manipulation. The medical emergency, the guilt trip, the appeal to blood bonds. Part of me wondered if it was even true or just another attempt to force contact. But another part of me, the part that was healing, that was building something new, recognized this as a test. Not of my love for my mother, but of my commitment to my boundaries. I typed carefully. If Mom's health issues are real, I'm sorry to hear that. I hope she recovers fully. However, I'm not interested in reconciliation at this time. You both made a choice to prioritize maintaining social peace over protecting your son. That choice had consequences. I'm rebuilding my life around people who value honesty and integrity. If someday you want to genuinely acknowledge what you did wrong, not just apologize for how it made me feel, but actually own your actions and their impact, I might be open to conversation. Until then, please respect my boundaries. I wish you both well, but I need to prioritize my own healing. I sent it and immediately blocked the number. No room for second guessing. No opening for manipulation. Emily called 15 minutes later. Dad just called me freaking out about Mom's health and you refusing to come home. Is that true? He texted trying to guilt me into contact. I declined and blocked him. How sick is Mom, actually? She has high blood pressure and needs to adjust her medication. She's not dying. This is Dad being dramatic to manipulate you. That's what I figured. Thanks for confirming. I'm proud of you, for holding your boundaries even when it's hard. It's getting easier, actually. Every time I choose myself, it gets a little easier the next time. After we hung up, I returned to editing a blog post titled The Myth of Family Loyalty. The core argument: loyalty is a two-way street, and blood relation doesn't excuse betrayal. Family should be earned through consistent trustworthiness, not demanded because of genetic connection. The post would be controversial. I'd already learned that my refusal to forgive my parents made some readers uncomfortable. They wanted redemption arcs and reconciliation. They wanted me to be the bigger person, but I was done being the bigger person. Being the bigger person had meant accepting less than I deserved for years. A woman sat down at the table next to mine, pulling out a laptop covered in travel stickers. She caught me looking and smiled. "Portland?" she asked, nodding at my laptop's background. A photo I'd taken of Mount Hood last weekend. "Yeah, I moved here a few months ago. How are you liking it?" "It's been good for me. Fresh start, new city, new life." She nodded knowingly. Those are the best kind of moves, the ones where you're running towards something instead of away from something. I'm definitely doing both, I admitted. But the toward part is getting stronger. We chatted for a few minutes. Her name was Maya. She was a graphic designer who'd moved to Portland 3 years ago after her own difficult breakup. She mentioned a hiking group that met Sunday mornings, handed me a card with the organizer's contact info and said, "If you're looking to meet people who appreciate honesty and aren't interested in drama, this is a good crew." After she left, I stared at the card. Old me would have politely pocketed it and never followed up, too wrapped up in existing relationships to make room for new ones. New me pulled out my phone and sent the organizer a text introducing myself. The response came immediately. "Welcome. We're hiking Silver Falls this Sunday. Meet at the trailhead at 9 a.m. Bring water and an open mind." An open mind. I had one of those now, scraped clean by betrayal and rebuilt with intention. That evening, I added a final entry to my blog. Update. 3 months later, people keep asking me if I regret my decision. If I regret changing the locks, leaving my wife, cutting off my parents, ending a 15-year friendship. They ask if I feel guilty about choosing myself over keeping the family together. The answer is no. Not even a little bit. Here's what I've learned. Sometimes loving yourself looks like betrayal to people who were used to you betraying yourself for them. My wife wanted me to sacrifice my dignity for her comfort. My best friend wanted me to sacrifice my truth for his shame. My parents wanted me to sacrifice my boundaries for their peace. And every single one of them framed their demands as love. But love doesn't ask you to live in a lie. Love doesn't require you to set yourself on fire to keep others warm. Love doesn't punish you for having standards. I'm building a new life now. It's smaller, quieter, and infinitely more honest. I'm surrounded by people who don't need me to pretend everything's fine when it's not. I'm creating work that matters, helping people who've been through similar betrayals find their own courage to walk away. And I'm learning, slowly, to trust again, not blindly, but wisely. Not everyone deserves access to your inner world. Not everyone has earned the right to your vulnerability, and that's okay. To everyone still trying to decide whether to stay or go, whether to maintain peace or demand truth, I'll tell you what my therapist told me. You can't heal in the same environment that made you sick. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do, for yourself and, paradoxically for others, is to walk away. Let them face the consequences of their actions. Let them sit with their choices. And let yourself be free. I changed the locks because I needed to. I walked away because I had to. And I started over because I deserved to. 3 months in, I'm happy to report I'm still standing. And I'm finally standing on solid ground. I hit publish and closed my laptop. Through the coffee shop window, Portland rain continued its gentle percussion against glass. Somewhere across the country, Sarah was raising Marcus's baby. My parents were probably crafting another guilt trip message Emily would warn me about. Marcus was presumably living with the reality that his actions had consequences. But none of that was my problem anymore. I finished my coffee, pulled on my jacket, and stepped out into the rain. Tomorrow I'd start drafting the book proposal. Next week, I'd go hiking with strangers who might become friends. Next month, who knew? The future was unwritten. But this time I was holding the pen. And I was finally writing a story I actually wanted to be part of.